So hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's community meeting for the Bus Network Redesign proposed changes. Next slide. So my name is Reagan Checchio, and I'm going to be serving as the moderator for tonight's meeting. And before we begin the presentation, I do want to review a few technical aspects of the Zoom platform. We are recording tonight's meeting so it can be shared with those who are unable to join. All attendees will be muted during the presentation to prevent excessive background noise. If you're viewing this meeting on a computer, you can toggle the speaker view to see the presentation more prominently. And if you're on a smartphone, you can swipe to change your views. We also encourage you to rename yourself in the Zoom and note if you're here tonight as an elected official or representing an organization. So I also need to review some Zoom instruction slides. Next. So we are offering live interpretation tonight in Spanish. If you require Spanish language services, please click the interpretation button on your toolbar. That's the globe icon, and select the language that you would like to hear. At this time, I will ask all English speakers to please select English as their chosen language. This will allow you to hear translated non-English comments during the Q&A. We also have ASL interpreters here tonight for the meeting. Next slide. All MBTA activities, including public meetings, are free of discrimination. The MBTA complies with all the federal and state civil rights requirements preventing discrimination on the basis of race, color, national origin, limited English proficiency, and additional protective characteristics. We welcome the diversity from across our entire service area. If you have any questions or concerns, please visit mbta.com/Title 6, that's a V and an I, to reach the Office of Civil Rights. Next. You can also view closed captions by clicking the Show Captions feature and selecting from the options shown. You can also select caption size. Also, you may use the Q&A button to submit a typed question or comment at any point during the meeting, but we do ask you hold substantive comments and questions until after the presentation is complete, as your questions may be answered. In addition, we're going to be meeting in small groups later in the meeting, so you will have other opportunities for more interactive discussion. If you do submit a question or comment using Q&A, it is not going to be visible to attendees once submitted, but we are going to try to get to as many as possible tonight. If you are an elected official and you would like to share a verbal comment after the main presentation and before we go into the small group discussion, please submit your name in the Q&A so we will know to call on you at that time. So if you do that now, that would be great. For other attendees, if you wish to share a verbal comment during Q&A, you can also use the raise hand feature. We're going to review this slide again after the presentation. If you need technical assistance during the meeting, you can also use the Q&A feature, and someone from the project team will reach out to you to try to assist. And now I'm going to turn the meeting over to Katie Calandriello. Sorry, Katie, from
Thank
the
you, Reagan.
MBTA.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for attending tonight. I'm Katie Calandriello. I am the Community Engagement Specialist here on the Bus Transformation team. For tonight's meeting, just to go over our agenda, we will provide a recap of the Bus Network redesign, review proposed updates, and go over the timeline and next steps. Then we'll move into breakout rooms for about 45 minutes for smaller discussions about the specific routes and proposals. And after the breakout rooms, we'll return to the main room for Q&A. Going into our meeting purpose, the goal of tonight's meeting is to hear your feedback on 11 proposed revisions to the Bus Network redesign plan. We will also take feedback regarding other routes as well. These revisions to the Bus Network redesign plan focus on improving access to service for transit-critical populations, but we of course want to hear from you how we can best serve you and your community. The virtual public meeting and other in-person meetings, which will be announced soon, are intended to be a platform for folks to share feedback on the proposed changes, which will of course help us shape how we update the Bus Network redesign plan. But before we really jump in, we're going to start with some polls. Reagan, could you launch the first poll? Thank you. This first one asks about which modes of transit you typically use. You can select all that apply. We've got automobile, either yours or a member of your household, bicycle, MBTA bus, MBTA subway and light rail, ferry, commuter rail, ride share, walking, or other. And we'll give folks a moment just to put these in. I think we'll give it like 15 more seconds. All right. It looks like bus and subway and light rail are almost tied, which is very cool to see. Walking pretty high up, automobile fourth. We got two ferry users. Awesome. All right. I think we're ready for our next poll question. These questions, these responses won't be public. This is just to help us. But which zip code do you live in? Enter your name if you would like to participate in a Spanish language breakout room, and then also enter your name if you would like ASL services in a breakout room. And just a reminder, these will not publicly be shared with other folks in the Zoom. Just a moment more on these. All right, I think we're good to wrap on that. Thank you all for answering those questions. All right, jumping into what is Bus Network Redesign? Um, so you may have also heard this as the acronym, just BNR, but this is the MBTA's plan to grow and restore the MBTA bus network. We conducted public outreach in 2022, where we heard hundreds or thousands of comments and held hundreds of meetings. The Bus Network Redesign plan outlines an increase in bus service by 25% across the network, with at least a 70% increase in weekend service, and 275,000 more residents will be near high frequency service across the network as a result of the changes outlined in the plan. Recapping what we've done so far. So implementation began in 2024. We refer to this as Better Bus Network just to differentiate between changes that are planned or in the BNR plan from changes that we are currently implementing or have already implemented. But since we've been implementing the Better Bus Network, we've created frequent, simple routes system-wide. We've exceeded pre-COVID service levels, have 21 frequent bus routes that service every 15 minutes or better. We had 15 key routes prior, but we've transitioned away from key route to frequent bus route. We've also simplified confusing variants across the system. These are routes that perhaps took a different short turn or different route, different times of day. We've also been building supportive infrastructure alongside these changes, improving bus stops, new double-sided signs, and also adding transit priority infrastructure across the system. For example, we added a 1.1 mile bus lane on 2nd Street in Chelsea, saving riders 2 minutes and up to 4 minutes and some other times as well. We also added the newest transit priority infrastructure piece to our system just over a month ago. We have new and improved bus lanes and added transit signal priority near Sullivan Station, supporting lots of routes over there, including the Route 85, which is our newest Better Bus Network change. This was formerly the CT2 and is now simplified, extended to Assembly. We've also had other ridership gains as a result of the Better Bus Network. Just after 1 year of implementation, we had a 20% increase in ridership. The new Route 15, which became a frequent bus route and extended to Fields Corner, saw a 20% increase in ridership after only 6 months. We've also better aligned new service with demand, for example, on the 104 and 62, which now both run at more times of day and serve areas that didn't have service before. We've welcomed 3,000 new riders to the system. And also as a result of one-seat rides, the 109 has seen ridership gains as well. And equity has continued to be a driving force behind implementation. The riders benefiting from the Better Bus Network changes are 90% low income and 80% riders of color. But I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Becca Wolfson, to chat more about why we're proposing changes.
Great. Thank you, Katie. And hi, everyone. I'm Becca Wolfson. I'm the director of the Better Bus Network at the MBTA, overseeing the team that's implementing the Bus Network Redesign Plan. I'm going to begin to walk us through the rationale behind proposing changes to the Bus Network Redesign Plan and what that process will look like. So as stated, the Bus Network Redesign Plan was adopted by our board of directors in November 2022, though we always intended it to be a living, breathing plan to some extent. One example of it being a living, breathing plan with anticipated minor updates is we're still working on the route details for bus service through the Longwood Medical Area. You'll see that map on the right side of the slide. And we have active stakeholder and engagement processes in progress to determine the exact details of routing through the area, though generally schedules, amount of service, and route offerings with areas served have been predetermined. Also, through implementation, which began in 2024, we've recognized minor changes that needed to be made based on street conditions, rider patterns, and shifting of operational constraints. One example is on Route 104. We learned that there was a street where the new route segment was supposed to run, Spring Street in Everett, that flooded up to 40 times per year. As a result, we chose a new path of travel for that route on 2nd Street that brought the bus to Broadway and Everett a block away to avoid detours and flood conditions. So we've learned and we're continuing to learn as we do implementation of bus network redesign. We've seen progress with operator hiring, seen success of regaining bus riders as we've improved service, and seen continued demand for new and more service. We've also gotten feedback about possible unintended negative impacts to riders from starting early in the BNR process, some of which were natural trade-offs, but some of which we hope to address through proposed changes to our planned network that we're going to share with you today. For context, the original bus network redesign plan added about 25% more service to our previous bus service plan and schedule and committed corresponding funding and resources. Today, we're proposing an approximate 1 to 2% alteration of the original bus network redesign plan, resulting in up to about a 2% increase in investment. So the changes that we're showing you today are not resource neutral. Of course, as an agency, we don't have unlimited resources. So still, it's not likely that we're proposing every desired change that has a constituency. And all changes that we're proposing through this process will still need to be approved by the MBTA board and leadership. Next slide. So there are two types of changes that we're proposing. One is preserving front door access, so a very close pickup and drop off for people, riders with limited mobility. Some portions of the service changes that we're showing you today that we're trying to fix are proposed changes in the BNR plan that would result in vulnerable populations, specifically seniors and riders with limited mobility, losing that front door access and having a harder time getting to and onto the bus. So we're proposing some changes that would reverse cuts or service shifts to preserve that front door easier access for those riders. In some cases, it means proposing a route change. So change is something that's proposed in bus network redesign. One example is for Jack Satter House, which is a community of affordable housing for older adults. We're proposing a different service than exists today, but still that's to ensure that residents have that front door access to the bus and doesn't introduce the need for a longer walk to get to bus service. In some in some instances, it means a change in the provision of service. So we're proposing to add service on the Route 118. So residents of McCormick Housing on Old Colony Ave in South Boston, who currently have some limited Saturday service on the Route 16, have, again, that very proximate bus access. And you'll get more details about specific proposed changes later in the presentation. Next slide. Uh, the other type of change we're proposing is maintaining service in areas that would have declines in service under the adopted bus network redesign plan. These are areas in the bus network redesign plan where route changes that have been adopted would result in certain geographies being unserved by our bus network. And so we're proposing changes that would reverse cuts or reverse changes that would remove or significantly limit service to those areas. Proposals include restoring service to Danvers Square, to Point Shirley and Winthrop, along A Street in South Boston, and improving access to the Seaport area, improving access in Medford that would otherwise be reduced through bus network redesign, and other proposals to not eliminate or even to add some weekend service where we don't have it today. Next slide. The original goals behind the plan, even with today's proposals, remain the same. We're aiming to, through bus network redesign, increase bus service for those who need it most, create simpler routes, provide better all-day connections to more places, and more days of the week. These goals still do lead us to evaluating and accepting trade-offs. We recognize again that there are other changes that people have asked for and want to see and will ask us for as we embark on updating the bus network redesign plan, and wanted to give you some insight as to why we may not have considered some changes that we know folks want. We're constrained by the number of buses that we have available at peak times of the day. So most of the proposals add additional service on weekends and during off-peak times of the day. This also prevents us from adding or creating additional frequent bus routes at this time. We're also not proposing changes that would result in any major reroutings or require significant new capital investments. For instance, we have space limitations at busways that we can't change due to scale of investment needed, but we are committed to smaller capital investments like shelters at new transfer points and things of that nature. Next slide. Great. Now I'm just going to walk you through the timeline for this process before we get into the details of the proposals. In March, we shared our plan to amend the bus network redesign plan with the MBTA Board of Directors at the monthly board meeting. Their consent and approval gave us the go-ahead to begin this public engagement and to revise the bus network redesign plan. Throughout June and July, we'll engage with the public, so with you, and thank you for being here. In addition to this meeting, we'll be scheduling and announcing additional in-person meetings. Those additional meetings will mostly be in geographies that have more complex proposed changes where we're seeking very specific feedback. We'll also be talking to riders at pop-ups and stations, at bus stops, and on buses. We also have a survey to collect feedback that people can fill out anywhere, anytime. We'll share the link to that later in this meeting, and we encourage you to help us share it with more riders. Our public comment period will end on August 5th. At that time, we'll review all of the feedback we received. We'll then finalize our recommended changes. They may deviate from what we show you here today. The full package of changes will undergo a disparate impact analysis, and our full package of proposed changes will be presented to and again need to be approved by the MBTA Board of Directors. Our intent is to bring the final proposed changes to the board for approval at the end of this calendar year. And I also want to clarify that any approved changes that we make to the plan through this process will be rolled into the full plan. As with the implementation of Bus Network Redesign as it stands today, our teams implement route changes when resources are ready, when training has happened, when we've had full engagement with the community and the municipality where those routes run. These amendments will roll into that normal process. They won't skip to the front of the queue or be pushed to the end. Our expectation is to take the next approximately 5 years to continue with implementation of the rest of the bus network redesign plan. Next slide. So in a moment, we're going to share more information about the proposals. We know that's what everyone is here to hear. Next slide. Again, we have 11 sort of proposals that we're putting in front of you today. We will hear feedback on other things that we haven't proposed. So you are welcome to share additional changes that you want to see with us, and that will get considered as we consider everything else. Of the 11 proposed changes, there are different ways we've proposed to achieve the restored or improved service. For some, with routing changes, we have multiple sort of options or iterations to consider that would achieve that restored or improved service in a specific area. And for some, we may only be presenting or suggesting one option. We'll be looking for different types of feedback, but generally, we just want to know, did we get this right? What works or doesn't work with our proposal, and in what ways do you suggest that we continue to tweak those proposals? We know that many of you have shown up to tell us what you think, and you already have opinions. And we're just going to ask you to hold on to that feedback as my colleague Sonia goes through the overall changes. We'll look to get the feedback from you when we go into breakout rooms at the end of this main presentation. Which will follow this overview. You'll be able to ask questions and for clarifications once we break into the breakout rooms by proposed amendment or geography to maximize our ability to get your feedback and answer those questions. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Sonia, who will share that high-level overview of our proposed changes.
Wonderful. Thanks, Becca. And actually, that's okay. We can go to the slide. So welcome aboard, everybody. We are super happy that you're here. Thank you so much for taking the time this evening to join us. Please stretch, take a deep breath, fasten your seatbelts. We're about to begin. So I'm going to set the stage for a smaller group discussion, as Becca said, is going to happen later in breakout rooms, where we're going to break out into separate, smaller groups by geography to sort of discuss each proposal in more detail and hear your feedback. But at the moment, I'm going to focus on providing a high-level overview of the 11 proposed changes. So we're beginning here with Danvers area with implications to Lynn and Salem. So you're looking at 3 maps on the slide. To the very left is a map showing routes 435 and 465 in their pre-pandemic network. So this is 2019 and before. The center map actually shows our current network, which is adopted in 2020, and it shows only Route 435 and 436 without Route 465. And on the right is our proposal package for today. It shows some slight tweaks to the pre-pandemic network and also the map showing routes 435, 465, and 436. Next slide, please. So I'm going to explain a little bit about the zoom map here that you're seeing on the very right of this slide of sort of the gist of our proposal. So before the pandemic, the MBTA served Danvers Square with bus routes 435 and 465. In 2020, the T eliminated the Danvers Square section of 465 because of very low ridership. We now propose to restore MBTA service to Danvers Square by reintroducing a slightly different route 465 that has a more direct loop, and then returning the route 435 to its pre-pandemic alignment. This would help us reconnect Danvers Square residents to Salem and Lynn and restore service to an area of Danvers that is practically underserved today. Next slide, please. For Medford improvements, we're looking at Boston area service improvements specific. Under the bus network redesign, the MBTA planned to consolidate routes 80 and routes 350 and to discontinue Route 94. So on the current slide here shows two maps. On the left is the existing network. So this is the current network that shows several routes that are going through the areas of Medford, Arlington, Somerville, and Cambridge. So routes 67, 350, 80, 94, and 96 are shown on the existing network map. To the right is a network that we proposed or had in mind in 2022, but never actually implemented. So today we're here to talk about the three packages that we're proposing for Medford. We received many comments about frequency reduction in Boston Avenue, specifically in Medford and Somerville. We also heard from residents about the need to improve frequency and connections to Green Line and Red Line. And for that reason, we're proposing three packages so that we can try and improve frequency and dependability of service along Boston Avenue. The options that we propose that we're about to see on the next slide and the following two slides can be combined in different ways. Next slide, please. So on the left, so we're going to have a little bit of repetition here. So on the slide, on the left, you're also looking at the existing network map. And on the right is a one package option that we're proposing. So we're calling that package A. So package A consists of a couple of things that we're thinking we could do here. So one is to extend Route 80 to Arlington Heights and not consolidate Route 80 and Route 350 as we thought in the beginning to Burlington. This would help us to increase the frequency of Route 80. So that means we would preserve the current routing for 350 going to Burlington and Alewife. We would also, under this proposal or this package, we would preserve the current routing for Route 67, which goes through the Pleasant Street area. And we would extend Route 80 to Arlington Heights, connecting more of the Massachusetts Avenue and Arlington residents to the Green Line, which could also allow us to increase the frequency on Route 80 and reduce duplication of service in the area. Next slide, please. Package B, so this is another option that we can consider along the previous option, is to preserve Route 94 to also improve frequency and dependability at access to buses along Boston Avenue. Retaining Route 94 connects more residents near High Street in Medford to the Green Line and the Red Line, and eliminates the need for transferring to Route 95, which currently runs every 20 to 30 minutes. And then our final package, next slide, please. Our final package that we can consider along the other two is focused on Route 96. So we would reroute Bus 96 to Boston Avenue and away from George Street, which is where we currently have it. Rerouting to Boston Avenue could provide better frequency to the small portion of Boston Avenue. And this is where we heard a lot of comments from folks about needing extra buses and more dependable service. Making this change also allows us to have like a more intuitive stop location along Boston Avenue, which is Medford Tufts. We've currently redeveloped that stop, so it's now accessible. I also wanted to put a plug in for Route 96, which is in the near future going to become a frequent bus route, which means that it will provide 15-minute or better service all day, every day. And once we're ready to make other announcements about that, we'll let you guys know. Okay, next package, please. Extending Route 426 to Jack Satterhouse. So I'm going to introduce the layout of the maps on this slide as well. So on the left, we have the existing network, which shows Route 411, making the loop in front of the Jack Satter House and stopping for close area access to residents. In the middle, so the middle map is showing the 2022 proposed network that MBTA never implemented. And that map shows a couple of different routes. There's Route 455, which would have been a new route, along with Route 442, and changes to Route 426. It does not show Route 411 because under that proposal, we would have eliminated or replaced that route with the combination of these three. And then on the very right, you see a map with today's proposal, also indicating routes 426, 455, and 442. And we're going to go into more detail on this proposal once we get to our breakout rooms. Next. So to provide rationale for today's proposal, today we serve Jack Satter House in Revere by 3 routes, 411, 441, and 442. The 2022 Bus Network Redesign Plan proposed to eliminate Route 411, but increase bus service along North Shore Road. We also proposed to add a couple of new routes, which is Route 455, and then also increase frequency on Route 442, also beefing up the service on North Shore Road. Today, we propose to keep the elimination of Route 411, but instead extend Route 46 to provide direct front door access to Jack Satter House. And this would be on Oak Island Street. And this is in addition to increasing the service on North Shore Road, which we just mentioned. We think that this proposal would retain access to riders who would otherwise have to walk longer on North Shore Road to get to the bus. Next slide, please. The next proposal we're looking at is in South Boston, adding bidirectional service on A Street with additional access to Seaport. So again, on the left, you're looking at the existing current network that we have today, showing Route 11, making this one kind of like a one-way loop in Chinatown and around A Street. In the middle map shows the 2022 MBTA proposed network, which was never implemented, showing changes to Route 11, and also showing Route 42. On the right, you see today's proposal, which maintains those changes to Route 11 and also extends Route 42 to provide additional access to A Street as well as Seaport. Next slide, please. So to provide rationale for today's proposal, today Route 11 only serves A Street outbound, and it serves Chinatown and Medford Tufts Medical Center inbound. As part of the bus network redesign, Route 11 would be rerouted to serve Tufts Medical Center and turn around, basically bypassing downtown, still served by the future SL4, SL5 combination Silver Line. So this is coming in the future. And it would be leaving A Street under the proposal for Route 11 without that direct bus service. However, we propose today adding bidirectional service on A Street by extending a different bus route, which is 42, from Broadway to Fan Pier, which would improve access to South Boston and Seaport, while also better supporting future developments that are being planned in this area. Next slide, please. We're looking at the Winthrop area service and specifically retaining service to Point Shirley. So on the left, you see the existing or current network. We have MBTA routes 119 and 120 serving Revere area, and then you're looking at routes 713 and 712 that today serve Winthrop Beach, and Point Shirley. In the middle, you are looking at a MBTA's 2022 proposal, which was never implemented. It intended to basically swap routes 713 and 712 with MBTA routes 119 and 120, but to end service at Winthrop Ferry and to discontinue service to Point Shirley. On the right, we're looking at today's proposal, which extends service to Point Shirley. It still keeps the previous changes that I mentioned, which is swapping bus routes 713 and 712 with 119 and 120 that would basically provide the service that we provide today to Point Shirley. So essentially nothing changes, with the exception of the bus route naming nomenclature. Next slide, please. So again, quickly, MBTA is planning to consolidate bus service in Winthrop, replacing 713 and 712 with 119 and 120. As part of the bus network redesign, we intended to terminate the service at Ferry Terminal, the Winthrop Ferry Terminal, but we now propose to not do that to ensure that Winthrop residents are not left without appropriate service under the bus network redesign. Next slide, please. The next few proposals are going to be sort of walking back some of the future cuts that we intended to make. So this one is retaining Route 44 service to Ruggles. So on the left, you are viewing the existing network, which shows Route 44 going directly to Ruggles and sort of meeting up with Route 15 and 23 in Nubian. In the middle, you're going to see the 2022 network, which proposed to terminate Route 44 direct access at Nubian and have the other bus routes take over from there to Ruggles. But today, we propose to actually essentially go back to the existing network, which is to not touch anything with regards to Route 44 and keep it the way it is. And next slide. So the rationale for this is we have some upcoming changes that we're going to make in this neighborhood with some other bus routes. And we would, with this proposal, we would like to preserve a one-seat ride for riders along Humboldt Avenue in Roxbury. And we're going to discuss in more detail what this entails and have you guys ask questions and give us your feedback. Next slide, please. We are proposing to retain Saturday service on Route 18. So on the slide to the right, you see the current and the proposed routing for Route 18. So as part of the bus network redesign, MBTA is extending Route 18 from Andrew to JFK UMass and increasing its frequency. Under this plan, we considered actually removing Saturday service, but we're now proposing to not do that in order to support weekend travel for riders on Dorchester Avenue from Ashmont and JFK UMass stations. Next slide. This proposal intends to maintain Saturday service on Route 504, which is in Newton. So the slide shows the current and the proposed routing. So there's actually no change to the route. As part of the bus network redesign in 2022, MBTA planned to remove Saturday service on this route, but we now propose to maintain it to preserve direct weekend connection between Newton and downtown Boston. Next slide, please. This proposal would like to maintain the current service hours for Route 43. So as part of the bus network redesign, MBTA planned to reduce service on Route 43 to 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. on weekdays only. We now propose to preserve that service on Route 43 with actually 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. service 7 days per week. This would help us to maintain direct bus service along Tremont Street for riders who may not easily be able to reach parallel services such as Orange or Silver Line, especially during busiest hours. So in terms of the routing, nothing changes. So the map that we're looking at on the right side shows the current and the proposed routing. And next slide, please. So this proposal actually intends to add back the service that we removed sometime in 2020, which was midday and evening service on Route 202. So nothing changes in terms of routing. So we're looking at a map here for Route 202, which will remain the same. So we propose restoring midday and evening hours to improve access for Dorchester residents who are traveling between Fields Corner, Ashmont, and nearby housing such as Keystone Apartments. Next slide, please. So you're looking at the current routing map for Route 85. Route 85 was recently consolidated with Route CT2. And so you're seeing that consolidated new service map, which extends this route to Assembly in Somerville. We propose to add weekend service to this route, which did not exist before. We would like to support crosstown travel between Roxbury, Longwood Medical Area, Cambridge, Somerville, and Assembly Station. That completes the high-level overview summaries. And I'm now going to turn it over to my colleague Reagan, who will discuss how we can stay involved and move forward. Reagan?
Thank you, Sonia. What an excellent job on a lot of complicated proposals. So thank you so much. So there are a lot of ways that you can provide feedback on these proposals, both tonight and in the future. There are the breakout rooms that we have coming up. They're going to open shortly, or there's a survey link. My colleague Amanda is going to be posting the direct link in the chat, but you also can scan the QR code on the screen. The survey and public comment period are going to be open through August 5th. And after the public comment period closes, the MBTA bus team is going to revise the plan and present it to the MBTA Board of Directors for voting by the end of the year. Approved changes would be implemented as resources become available. We're also going to be holding some open houses throughout the summer. We're going to share those dates on the website and via email once we have them. If you can't make it to the open houses, we're also going to have street teams out at bus stops this summer to get rider feedback. You can also share questions and comments at betterbusproject@mbta.com. Amanda is ahead of me and putting that in the chat as well. And before we move into the small group discussions, I noted that earlier we had 2 elected officials who indicated that they wanted to provide comments. So if Councillor Winslow can raise their hand, just so I can get them. Great. Terry, do you mind unmuting the counselor? Are you?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, great. And this is Councilor Winslow from Malden. My comments relate to the 411 bus and a bit to 426. And this is really a little bit more to the next phase, but we have been having meetings with Senior Action and people at several of our senior housing complexes that are right now served by the 105 and the 411 and the 108 bus and the 430 bus. And a little bit of the feedback we're hearing is that people would like some of the 411 service to continue, at least as far as getting to Market Basket and Revere. And there's also a pretty big apartment building complex near that. So in some ways, I've suggested, I know Miles Taylor is someone I ought to talk to too, is looking at maybe having the 105 bus extend to the Market Basket area in Revere rather than merge with the 430 bus and can keep the 430 bus, which would then give more direct service into Malden Station for people in Saugus. So it's just a different wrinkle of what we have, but both the Suffolk Square area, which is near Bryant Street, and the 630 Salem Street area are big senior housing complexes who would like, they prefer more frequent service towards the Market Basket than Square One Mall and that type of thing. So it makes more sense to have the 105 really go over towards Market Basket. And I mean, I have a comment on the 426 that does touch into Malden. And it's important to go into Market Basket Plaza because people who need to shop on a weekly basis need to go right up to the market. I mean, Route 60 in there is horrible. I can't imagine people, getting their groceries and having to cross that street. So that's something that even as for the people at Jack Satter House, would benefit. So that's something and there is also a very large affordable housing, not too far from Market Basket that could benefit from swinging in there and being, more in a, residential street setting than on a highway. So that's one of the things I see. But so that's really just my comments are really about really maybe, fulfilling the mission of the better, the bus network redesign, but maybe tweaking it a little bit on those routes that are getting eliminated in Malden. So that's what I have to say. Thank you. Great.
Thank you, Counselor. I appreciate the time tonight.
Great. Great.
There's two other elected officials I have. I do just want to remind everyone that we're going to, after the elected officials are going to speak, we're going to go into the breakout rooms, and then hopefully more of your questions will be answered then. And then we're going to come back for some general Q&A. So I do see Representative Turco has their hand up. If we could unmute the representative. Are you able to speak? Representative?
Unmute. Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Welcome.
Great. Hey, thank you very much. I just want to say thank you. I know I represent both the Jack Satter House area of Revere as well as Point Shirley. And obviously the changes that have been discussed have caused much consternation. And so I'm glad to hear that the MBTA is listening to the community and listening to the affected residents. I do want to also thank the counselor from Malden. I thought it was very thoughtful. A lot of people in this business focus on their own area, and the fact that he was concerned about Jack Satter House and others is much appreciated. So I look forward to the breakout room and just look forward to getting this thing over the finish line at the board meeting. So thank you, and thank the residents of Winthrop and Revere that have chimed in so that the MBTA was aware of the concerns.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you coming tonight. And I believe Sally Currens, we can unmute, please. Are you able to speak?
Hi there. I'm sorry.
Hi.
I also can't seem to get my camera going. But I just wanted really to tell you how excited I can't make it go. So how excited we are to hear this news. We've been working with all of you for quite a while, and we appreciate it. We're almost there. I was just about to post it, and I thought, well, maybe we'll get through the call, but just noting that, but for the board vote, we are good to go. Yes?
I don't want to be the one to knock wood here, so I'll, Becca, I don't know if you want to comment or. But thank you for your comments and your enthusiasm tonight.
Thank you.
All right, I think we're going to go to Counselor Romano. Thank you for your patience, Counselor. Are you able to speak? Terry, can we unmute the counselor? See. Counselor Romano, I don't know if you're able to hear us. We can't hear you. Right, I'm going to give it one more moment. Counselor, I don't know if you're able to type in the Q&A if you're having any technical issues. Give it one more moment. All right. I think we'll go to the next slide while we wait for the counselor, and maybe the technical issues will resolve themselves. So I'm gonna go over the Q&A a little bit here about the small group discussions. My apologies. So as we mentioned earlier, we're gonna have the small group discussions to get your feedback and ideas for the proposals. So all attendees, thank you, Liam, for moving to the next slide, are going to be able to select the breakout room they wish to join. Each room is going to focus on different routes and proposals. Each breakout room has an assigned group leader who will introduce him or herself and facilitate the discussion. There are 6 breakout rooms. You'll see them on the next slide. So room 1 is Spanish language for all routes. Route 2 is Medford, which is room 2 is Medford, which is routes 80, 94, 96, 67, and 350. Route 3 is Danvers, routes 436 and 465. Room 4 is Winthrop and Revere, routes 411, 426, 455, 442, 712, 713, 119, 120. Room 5 is Dorchester, Roxbury, South Boston, and other service restoration, which are a lot of the other routes. And room 6 is designed for people who have other feedback or want to talk about other routes that aren't included in the service proposals being discussed tonight. You may notice when you are in a breakout room that they will be recorded, but that's only for note-taking purposes. Those recordings are not part of the meeting recording that we will share online. Note takers are going to be taking detailed notes that will be incorporated into the written summary of the meeting. So, how do you join a breakout room? When I open the rooms, you're going to click the breakout rooms in your meeting controls. This will display the list of open breakout rooms. You will click Join next to the room you wish to enter, then confirm by clicking Join again. If you have any trouble accessing the breakout rooms, or if you end up in the wrong room, you can select this call for help and a staff member will come and provide assistance to you. We are going to be in discussion for about 40 to 45 minutes. We're going to come back to the main room at 7:40. So if your breakout room discussion ends early, or if you want to participate in another discussion room, you can select the leave room, go to this main room where we're at now, and select a new room. You can also leave the meeting and rejoin again at 7:40 for the general Q&A. Or you can leave the meeting completely if you've had all of your questions or comments answered for the evening. I'm going to just take a pause for a minute to see if the counselor was able to post in the Q&A. So it seems like, counselor, you were having some technical difficulties with your mic. I would just encourage you, if you have any comments, if you want to type them in the chat, or perhaps your mic will be working better in the breakout room as well. And we can publish your comments. So sorry about that tonight. Okay, so I'm going to start getting ready so that I think the slide that you're going to see says that the breakout rooms go to 7:45 actually. So I'm going to confirm that we're going to be in there for 45 minutes and we're going to be back at 7:40-ish. Okay, so I am going to start I'm going to open the breakout rooms now, and everyone should be able to select the room that they would like to join. So let me open the rooms. Terry, do you mind pausing the recording? So I hope there were some great discussions in the breakout rooms and most of your questions were answered. I know the rooms were crowded, So if you weren't able to share all of your feedback, we encourage you to submit comments via the survey, the Q&A button, here, the project email address, and also by mail. It was pointed out earlier that we neglected to share the mailing address. If you would like to share written comments, you can mail them to us at Better Bus Network Team, 45 High Street, 5th floor, Boston, Mass. 02118. We're also going to be holding a series of in-person events this summer, including getting feedback directly from riders at bus stops. So now we're going to open the meeting up to you all to share any questions you may still have. Liam, can you go to the next slide? If you would like to answer, if you'd like to ask a question, you can still use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, or you can raise your hand. In order to hear from as many people as possible, I'm going to be trying to limit the verbal questions to 1 minute each per individual. I ask that you remain brief if you can. And as we review what's been submitted through the Q&A, we're going to prioritize answering questions. But please know that if you submit a comment in the Q&A, that's going to be included in the final meeting summary, and we will include that for the record. And for those joining on the phone, you can raise your hand by pressing star and then the number 9, and we can accept your comments verbally. So I am going to first look to the Q&A really quickly to see if we've had any new questions. I also I'm understanding that there were a few people in the Medford breakout room who still didn't get their questions answered. So if you would like to raise your hand, we can also do that as well. So let me first look at, I see Mela has her hand up. So Terry, can you unmute Mela?
Okay, I didn't get this question answered. I'm not sure. I was in a different breakout room. The 47 bus that was going from Central Square to Broadway, what is going on with those connections for people who have, like bus drivers who have to get to Cabot Garage? They brought this question up before when they tried to shut the 47 bus route down. Now I'm told it's going to connect to 42, but I want to know what happens to the spur that goes out to Broadway. Is that being covered by a different route? And how will people coming from Central Square be able to get to Broadway directly?
So I'll turn that over to someone from our technical team. Melissa, can you respond to that? Are you able to?
Yeah, so 47 is slated to terminate at Ruggles Station. Though, as you note, we are proposing to keep serving Broadway Station with the 42, which actually had been referenced in one of the amendments, because 42 which today terminates at Nubian, would be extended up to Broadway via Albany Street, kind of near the hospitals area, and then would be in the amendment proposed here extended even farther to the Fan Pier area via A Street. But you'll note there is a gap between Nubian and Ruggles contemplated. There's very frequent service between those two stations on multiple high frequency bus routes. But you're correct to note that there's not that direct transfer. Now, that said, someone coming specifically from Central to Broadway would probably hop on the Red Line, but if someone were in like the Cambridgeport area trying to get there, there are probably some combinations of areas where someone might have what we call a 3-seat ride. Now, where one of those legs would be very, very frequent service across multiple Nubian to Ruggles, where we have the overlap of 23s and 15s and things that it would only be a couple minutes at the most probably, but it would be a third transfer.
Thanks, Melissa. I'm going to go to Howard next. Terry, if you can unmute Howard. I understand, Howard, you were one of the patient people in the Medford room, so You should be unmuted.
Hi. First of all, thank you for doing this. You can hear me, can't you?
Yes, you're all good, Howard.
Okay, great. Um, I was one of those who wasn't able to get a chance to speak during the breakout for the Medford session. My son has special needs, and he depends on the 94 in particular to get him to Davis from where he takes the red line and goes to Mass General, where all of his doctors are. And I mean, the loss of the 94, aside from all the other reasons people have given, would be really tragic for him. The other thing I wanted to mention was a lot of people, and rightly so, argued on behalf of improvements to their own bus service. I just think that in terms of the options A, B, and C for Medford, it seems somewhat unfair to increase service in options A and C by totally eliminating service to an entire population, along High Street. So while I, certainly commiserate with people who are unhappy with the level of service they have, I guess having service is better than not having service. That's my point.
Thank you so much for your comments, Howard. We're definitely taking all of these into account as we review the proposals. I'm going to go to Susanna next because I understand she was also patiently waiting in the Medford room. Terry, if you can unmute Susanna.
Hi. I lost my Zoom connection a lot of times, so I missed a bunch of things. I want to reiterate what I think that I heard, which could be good. Anyway, so the 96 is slated to be high frequency and extend to Malden and extend to Union Square, no matter what happens in these options A, B, and C, and would therefore go to George and Winthrop no matter what, whether it goes to other places in Winthrop or whether to other places in Boston Avenue. And the other thing I think I might have heard, but I'm not sure, is that the 80 will be 20 or 30 minutes, 7 days a week. If even if we keep the 94, and is that correct? That could be a
Not quite.
nice thing.
If I could clarify just on that when you're done.
Okay, and the next question I have is about the definition of 15 minutes or better. If I plan on a bus coming every 15 minutes and it came 7.
I've lost Susanna's audio. I don't know if everyone.
And if I plan on taking a bus in 15 minutes and it comes in 7 minutes instead because it's 15 minutes or better, then I've missed that bus if I come on minute number 8, and then I have to wait another 15 minutes. Is that how it would work? Possibly. So those are my 3 questions. Under what circumstances could the 80 frequency be improved, and whatever happens to the 96, it's still going to be rapid and go from Malden to Somerville, even though I enjoy it going to Harvard Square as well. I would also enjoy it going all the way to the Somerville Market Basket. And I know it goes to Davis Square where I could hop on the T and go to Harvard. I'm legally blind, so transfers mean nothing to me. I have an MBTA pass. Thank you very much.
If I could respond to the question about the 80, one of the things that we are trying to understand is how much we should invest our resources toward pure 80 frequency versus how much we should invest in 94 restoration. So if we did not do the restoration as shown in the kind of package B of 94, that allows us to kind of put all of our resources into the option A bucket, which could get us to every 20 to 30 minutes, 7 days a week for the kind of full service day on 80. But if we did something where we wanted to do like half and half, we could kind of put some of our resources into frequency if it's important to also preserve the 94. So trying to understand how much we should kind of allocate toward the two things, but resources are finite. We only have so many buses, at least in a short-term implementation. We're pretty much capped on the number of peak hour buses that we have access to. On a longer term horizon, if we're talking about expansions and kind of building new bus garages, we might be able to have a different conversation. But for short-term planning, that's what we're looking at. To get at your second point, just confirming that we're still planning to have the 96 be a high frequency route, still planning to go from Malden to Union. And this was really about if we zig or zag on some combination of High Street, George, and or Boston Ave, kind of like pick two. And then we expect we would be on Winthrop Street, kind of in between whichever of those two roads that we would be on. But the rest of the corridor is expected. So this is a kind of just in that kind of between Boston Ave up to Winthrop Circle. How should we serve that neighborhood question? And then I forgot there was a third question, and
It's all right. Well, Melissa, I also it's fine. I also want to note that we probably have about 7 minutes left, and our interpreters do have a hard stop at 8 o'clock. So I want to flag that there are some great comments we're getting in the Q&A, great feedback. I'll also mention that there is going to be, I know there's a lot of interest in what we are for shorthand calling Medford, but I know there are a lot of other communities affected by those proposals. There's going to be an open house about that, dedicated. Please continue to leave your comments, use the survey, email us, mail us your comments. There's a question in the Q&A, and then I'm going to take Paul Schlickman, his hand is raised, and then I think I'm going to turn it over for final remarks tonight. So the first question in Q&A I have is from Amanda, which is, what is the rationale for changing the end of the 96 to Union Square over Harvard? And what other opportunities to connect with the Red Line will remain? So that's a question from Amanda. Melissa, I don't know, or if anyone else can answer that.
Yeah, so the main rationale is we were trying to increase the number of people who were served by our frequent bus network. And so that's more of a network level decision. Somerville didn't have any high frequency bus service when we started. It does now. But there would be transfer opportunity to the Red Line still at Davis. And then there's actually also a transfer to the high frequency 77 route at Porter if you kind of walk across the grocery store parking lot there at Porter Square. So you don't have to have the link pass. You could do that with just a bus to bus transfer as well.
Thanks, Melissa. And then I think, Paul, you will probably be our last question of the night. Terry, if you can unmute Paul.
Thank you very much. I want to note that the option A of Plan 2, which is listed as improved Medford access, has drastic impact on Arlington, both in terms of benefits from adding service to give us a connection to the Green Line, plus undoing bad choices in terms of the consolidation of the 8350 and moving the 67. So that if I go and talk to people about your survey, and they hit the survey and all they see is improved Medford access. Option A does more than improve Medford access. It also has significant impact on Arlington, which is beneficial for us, and not implementing option A harms us. So I would urge you to revise your survey on that last option that just says improve Medford access, but to also include the fact that the plan impacts Arlington, the 350, the 80, and the 67.
Thank you for your comments. I want to thank everyone for their patience tonight and the really excellent feedback that we're getting. Really appreciate everyone's thoughtful participation in the meeting tonight. I'm going to turn it back over to Sonia, who I think is going to wrap it up for us and maybe outline some next steps. Sonia?
Thank you so much, Reagan. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. I know this was after work for a lot of folks, and it's long 2 hours, and you are so excited to give us your feedback, and we will continue to listen to all the feedback that you have. So please continue to ping us. There are multiple ways in which you can reach us directly with your comments if you haven't had a chance to do so tonight. So please email us directly. Our team does check these emails, betterbusproject@mbta.com. It's also in the chat. The survey, as we talked about, mbta.com/BNR survey. The survey does have an option where you can skip questions. And if you're in a rush or want to simply give us your feedback, please utilize the boxes narrative feedback where you could simply tell us your feedback right there. What helps us when you go to the survey rather than contacting us some other way is that we have your feedback that we can quantify. We can gather that data and have it all in one place. So it's really helpful for us if you can focus on giving us your feedback through the survey. We will be announcing on our website, so please keep an eye on our website, the list of events that we're planning for the month of July. So there are going to be 3 or 4 other public events where we're going to be focusing in specific geographic areas to get your feedback. These are face-to-face meetings. We're also contemplating announcing, if there's time here, we have a couple of bus station outreach events where our staff is going to be fanning out at stations and riding the buses to sort of hear from riders as well, and at least alert people that we have a survey and that we have a public comment process that you can participate in. And a colleague just posted both our address where you can write in and our project webpage where you could follow us and get the latest updates on where we're going to be in the month of July. So thank you all so much. If anyone else from my team at the MBTA would like to say something in addition to what I just stated, please feel free to do so. But to me, it was personally heartening to see so many people attend and excited to collaborate with us to make Better Bus Network in our greater Boston area. Thank you so much.